Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here. In this video we're talking about PlayStation Vita, Nintendo Switch, and a whole bunch more. Let's get started. Alright, we'll kick things off here talking about PlayStation Vita emulation on Android with Vita 3K, and Vita 3K just got a brand new update. So at the time of filming, Vita 3K Android Release 6 is the latest update, and this one has been worth the wait. It is absolutely huge. We've got a whole bunch of bug fixes, performance improvements, and brand new features. For example, if you have a Snapdragon CPU, they've updated Adreno tools to add a turbo mode to the Adreno GPU. And they also automatically hide the overlay after 10 seconds if you're using a Bluetooth controller and don't want to use the touchscreen. On top of that, they've added in an FSR upscaler. They've added in a bicubic filter if you want to use it. And they've also implemented app pause and resume. Now there are a couple of pointers here. The first few times you use this version, you may run into some slowdowns where you didn't have them before. And that's because this update invalidates existing shader caches, so you may have to rebuild those. Secondly, MacDo can only test on a Poco F3 because that's the only device they own, so they can't make any guarantees about other GPUs. And they strongly recommend using turnip drivers if you have a Snapdragon CPU. Vita 3K is 100% free, and I'll drop a link to it in the description below. Feel free to check it out. And speaking about checking stuff out, we're still talking about emulation on Android, but shifting over to the Nintendo Switch and talking about Yuzu. And Yuzu got yet another massive update. I'm not joking here, a lot of people are going to love this feature. They've added in the option to install game updates or DLC. This puts Yuzu in a very unique category for Switch emulation on Android. They've also added in a whole bunch of translations. They've added in a use reactive flushing setting, and this improves render accuracy at the expense of performance. They've also disabled force maximum clock setting by default to reduce thermal throttling, and hopefully your phone will cool down a little bit. And they've also included the latest changes from upstream Yuzu, so the PC version. On a quick side note, if you are noticing some performance loss after this update, just go on ahead and re-enable force maximum clocks. And speaking about quick side notes, next up we're talking about PlayStation 3 emulation with RPCS3. RPCS3 is getting DualSense Edge support. It already supported the DualSense controller, but the DualSense Edge has a different hardware ID, and now that's been fixed. Moving on, and we're talking about Nintendo Switch emulation again, but this time on PC with Yuzu. And mainline version 1468 fixes ambient occlusion that would break in Tears of the Kingdom in very specific situations, when the resolution was scaled with the 1080p mod applied. And the paid testing early access version of Yuzu also got an update. 3673 just dropped, and this one fixes some Linux audio, and it also adds an option to apply anisotropic filtering for all mipmap modes. This option will help improve anisotropic filtering quality in a whole bunch of games, but also may break stuff in others. It produces some artifacts. This is currently being tested, and I'm curious to see what happens with this one moving forward. And speaking about Switch emulation on PC, next up we're talking about Ryujinx, and Ryujinx has a small update here, version 1.1.890. If you're using mods, you may want to pay attention to this one. For the mod loader, it stops loading mods from folders that don't exactly match the title ID. Mods for a given game will no longer load from folders that have a slight wrong variation of the game's title ID. And speaking about Switch emulation, next up we're talking about GlumSak, which started out as a joke and has continued on since then. Anyways, GlumSak just got a brand new update. Version 2.5.0.1 just dropped, and this reduces the load on the CPU. It says improved performance of loading any meta file in. For those who may not be aware, GlumSak can apparently be used to install keys, shaders, and firmware to Yuzu and Ryujinx. Moving on, and we're talking about emulation front end, Attract mode, and Attract mode also got a brand new update. If you use Attract mode, you may want to update to version 2.7.0. It's the first release since February, and we've got a whole bunch of bug fixes. This one is free, it's open source, and I'll drop a link to it in the description below. Moving on, and we're talking about Diablo 4, and Diablo 4 has been crazy successful so far, even with random server issues. They've surpassed over $666 million in sales in just 5 days. They're saying that this is Blizzard's fastest selling game of all time, even better than Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. Did you expect it? Are you playing it? Let me know in the comments below. And speaking about comments, you won't see any on Reddit Android until at least June 20th. They've taken an extended blackout in protest of the recent API changes over on Reddit, which we've talked about in previous videos. Anyways, here I'm not certain if other subreddits are going to follow, but this is a very interesting choice. And speaking about Reddit, next up we're talking about SMITE, and SMITE will now run on Linux systems. In this changelog it says special thanks to the SMITE community for helping with this. A group of players in the Reddit SMITE Discord made a big impact on this change. This game does work on the Steam Deck, but you may have to load a custom controller layout in order to get things to work correctly. Moving on, and a couple of classic games here. I wouldn't say the best classic games, but a couple of recognizable ones named Iron Commando and Legend are going to be available this Thursday on Nintendo Switch, PS4, PS5, and Xbox. If you've played these before, let me know in the comments below, and let me know your thoughts about these games in the comments below. Moving on, and this one is a little bit unexpected, but not unwelcome. It's a brand new Game Boy game from McDonald's. It's called Grimace's Birthday, and it's over on grimacesbirthday.com. I'll leave a link in the description below. You can play this directly in your browser. On top of that, someone has already archived this over on the Internet Archive. And interestingly enough, someone sent me a link today for Grimace's Birthday, and if you click on it, it'll download a .msi file. If you rename it to .gbc, it should work in emulators. Next up, we're talking about Super Mario World, and this game just got a brand new PC port. They say here you must self-build it for now, and if you wanted to learn more about it, I'll drop a link to the GitHub in the description below. It is free and open source. They say here it's an early version, it has bugs, and the code is messy. And last up here, we're talking about Phasmophobia, and this game apparently is now coming to consoles for the Xbox Series X, PS5, and PSVR. If you are interested in this one, I'll drop a link to the article in the description below. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a whole bunch today. Let me know your thoughts about absolutely any of it in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos, don't tempt fate, save your state.